Major Corfu, Foxtrot, descend 4000 feet.
Roger, 4000 feet to the 2 of Foxtrot.
Hello and welcome back on board. I am once again running the 11 version of X-Plane today. Why X-Plane11? I wanted to fly with the TBM 900 again, and it is unfortunately still not certified for X-Plane12. My flight today ends once again on the Greek island of Corfu. Sarah was, as some may remember, already with the Boeing 737 and with the TBM. A YouTube colleague gave me the idea to fly to Corfu again. On his channel, he flies to the most dangerous airports in the world, including Corfu. I have flown to Corfu several times in the past and was not aware of the dangerous situation I was facing. Therefore, today I allow myself the adrenaline kick and fly once again to the airport Ioannis Kapodistrias. Corfu is the second largest of the Ionian Islands and the seventh largest in Greece, with an area of about 585 square kilometers. It is located off the Balkan Peninsula, separated off the Strait of Corfu from the Albanian coast, which is up to 2 kilometers away. The Italian coast in the west is barely 100 kilometers away. Corfu is also called the Green Island because of its vegetation and is one of the most prosperous regions in Greece. The heart of the island is Corfu town. The historic old town is the heart of Kerkyra, as the Greeks call their island capital. Corfu Airport is located 3 kilometers south of the city center of Corfu town. The speciality of the airport lies in the unusual location of the runway, which is almost entirely surrounded by water and is situated between 2 hills. To the south, it begins in the sea with a large circular turning area. Traffic on the main road EO25, which is almost directly behind the runway on the land side, has to be stopped by traffic lights for every aircraft takeoff and landing for safety reasons, as the safety area is beyond the road. However, my flight starts about 180 nautical miles east-northeast at Thessaloniki Airport, ICAO code Lima Golf Tango Sierra. As you can see very little. It is still dark, 6:45 local time. Therefore, I do without a detailed description of the airport. I only want to mention that this is the most important airport in the north of Greece. Its official name is Macedonia Airport, named after the region of Macedonia in northern Greece. My 4 passengers wanted to start as early as possible to enjoy the day in Kerkyra extensively. And there stands the good stuff. The TBM 900 that I incredibly love to fly. This little rocket is my favorite when it comes to getting from A to B quickly and comfortably. I've already done the exterior check, so we can take off in about 20 minutes. The flight distance is about 180 nautical miles. Flight time will take about 1 hour. The waypoints are Lopos, Kogis, Picos, VORDME Yankee November and Parax. Our altitude flight level 240. The weather does not cause any problems. A layer of cirrus clouds at about 18,000 feet and wind with 18 knots from northeast. We are 5 people on board, have 160 gallons of fuel in the tanks and a takeoff weight of 3,012 kilograms. So everything is in the green and I promises to be a pleasant flight. Then off to the cockpit. The crash lever is already in position up and battery on. We have lights in the cockpit and cabin and the avionics are ready to go. The passenger and their luggage are on board. I close the door because it's about to get loud on the engine start. All switches and controls are in correct position. In the overhead panel, all switches are off except ignition, and nav light is on. I still set the generator to main. The CAS, the crew alerting system, reports only correct technical indications. Then we listen to what ATIS reports.
Thessaloniki Macedonia Information Lima 300 Zulu weather. Wind 320 at 6, visibility more than 10. Sky conditions 17,500 scattered, temperature 15, dew point -14. Area QNH 1020. Arriving runway 34, departing runway 34. Advise on initial contact. You have Lima.
Wind 320 degrees with 6 knots. Visibility more than 10 kilometers. Temperature 15 degrees. QNH 1020. Runway 34 and Lima. We look at the airport map to see how we have to taxi to 34. But before that, I have to enter the flight plan. From Lima Golf Tango Sierra to Lima Golf Kilo Romeo. The entry of the data is quick with the keypad, because there is no need to turn the control knob for each letter or number. Now I enter the waypoints. Lopos, Lima Oscar Papa Oscar Sierra. Kogis, Kilo Oscar Golf India Sierra. Picos, Papa India Kilo Oscar Sierra. Yankee November and Parax. Papa Alpha, Romeo Alpha X-Ray. The SID, the standard instrument departure route assigned to me by ATC, is Lopos 3 Alpha. Let's see what we can expect here. Anyway, at first glance, a few extra miles of flight. After takeoff, maintain direction to 600 feet, then left turn and intercept radial 322 from VOR Micra. At 10 nautical miles, left turn and back to the VOR. There we must have reached an altitude above 6,000 feet. While overflying the VOR, right turn track 278 and on the Micra radial 233 to Lopos. At Lopos we need to be higher than 12,000 feet. This is absolutely no problem with the TBM. Then I enter the SID Lopos 3 Alpha in the flight plan. To do this, I go to the procedures page and select departure. Lopos 3 Alpha, enter and load. The flight plan is now loaded up to Parax. I enter the approach for Lima Golf Kilo Romeo when I have received the approach information for Corfu from center. I am still configuring the PFD by enabling DME, bearing 1 and 2 and the wind indicator. I will let the autopilot fly the GPS route, but as enough backup, I am still turning in the Micra VOR 110.8 and the corresponding courses in the PFD. VOR 1 course 322, and VOR 2 course 233. Timer for engine start standby. Now I set the altitude to 24,000 feet. Now I check if the display switching works, then everything is set and I am ready for the engine start. One point is still missing, the lights test. Okay, everything is fine. I check the CAS again. Everything is normal. Engine manual override is off. Throttle in cut-off. Fuel tank selector open left. And I close my door now. Propeller areas checked, all clear. Strobe light is on, booster pump on. Timer activated and hold starter for 2 seconds. NG running high, oil pressure rising, NG above 14%, throttle low idle. Fuel flow, ignition, LGTS running. 30%, 26 seconds. ITT 740 degrees max and dropping slightly again. Oil pressure good. At 52 plus minus 2%, starter and ignition should go out. This is also fine. Throttle flight idle. NG 60%, 40 seconds. Engine runs up beautifully, all values in the green range. Inertial separator on. Aux BP auto and autopilot trim switch on. Emergency oxygen supply for crew and passengers on. Air conditioning and bleed on. Done. NG should be 70 plus minus 2%. Also correct. Before we start taxiing, I check the control surfaces for free movement. A small notice. All control surfaces on this airplane are controlled conventionally without hydraulics. All of you who were looking forward to the start of the flight, please be patient. First, I have to do a short system check. First, the electrics. The main generator and the bus bars are working correctly. Switch to standby generator and it takes over the power supply without any problems. Back to the main generator. Now check the fuel system. Fuel flow 35 US gallons per hour at flight idle. Remaining fuel 159 gallons. Now checked the automatic tank switch over. Everything is correct here as well. Now the weather radar on standby. I always darken the MFD at night and activate the terrain warning. Last checkpoint. Throttle twice from flight idle to high idle position to check if the prop moves to the feather position. This also works correctly. I also set the AVI-tab to night mode so that it does not glare. Taxi light on. Remove chocks. And parking brake released. Throttle into taxi range, and after ground has given us taxi clearance, we can start taxiing via Alpha 4, Alpha 5 and Alpha 6 to the runway 32 holding point.
Alpha 226, Echo 185, Whiskey 5, cross Center Whiskey. Hey, cross 1 Center Whiskey 5, Echo 18, so that's 16 Delta and then Bravo North. NG also 16.
Delta, Bravo, North, and NG location 556.
I reduced the taxi to taxi stop 32 due to time constraints. There was also nothing much to see in the dark. Throttle in flight idle and parking brake on. For better clarity, cabin light on. Flaps in takeoff position. Trim adjusted. Landing lights on. Toga and nav activated. Cabin light off. Throttle taxi range. Parking brake released, pitot heat and stall heat on. Another quick check, cars OK. LFE landing field elevation Lima Golf Kilo Romeo 0 feet. Flaps takeoff, trim set. Altitude turned in, inertial separator on, engine values in the green. We have received takeoff clearance from the tower, so let's go. According to the manual, I need 410 meters ground rolling distance with the current weight at the outside temperature and the field elevation. I rotate at 85 knots. Heading pointer 342 degrees. Throttle 50% until prop speed has reached 2000 RPM and then push the throttle gently forward to about 97-98% torque. Release brake. Airspeed indicator active. Rotate 85 knots. Positive climb, brake and gear up. Flaps up. 600 feet left turn. Yaw damper on. I transfer the aircraft to the autopilot. Flight level change activated and speed set to 124 knots for best climb. In the meantime, I have deactivated the inertial separator, so we have full engine power available. Baro I have set to standard at 6,000 feet transition altitude, and we have about 1.5 miles to go before we initiate the left turn back to the VUR Micra. And left turn back to the VUR. Eight minutes have passed since takeoff, and we have already climbed over 14,000 feet. The TBM 900 climbs to a cruise altitude of 31,000 feet in about 19 minutes at a normal takeoff weight with a climb rate which is 1,630 feet per minute on average. At this altitude, the TBM 900 reaches a cruise speed of 326 knots. The aircraft is, of course, equipped with a pressurized cabin, and the cabin pressure is automatically controlled. What I didn't mention, the transponder is also regulated automatically. Just turn in the squawk, the computer does the rest. I reduced the climb rate to 1,000 feet per minute to build up speed. At 170 knots I activate flight level change again to climb further to flight level 240 at this speed. Still 2.5 miles to the VOR. We are over Micra VOR and right turn track 278 degrees. Left turn, intercept radius 322 Mike Kilo Romeo. 20 miles to go to Lopos. That's just under 5 minutes of flight time. The TBM 900 has been in production since mid-2014 and is the successor to the TBM 850. Currently, Daher offers the TBM 910 and the TBM 960. The top model, the 960, has the Garmin G3000, GWX800 Advanced Doppler Radar, E-throttle, which means the power lever stays in one position from takeoff to landing, and the home-safe emergency landing feature. This automatically brings the aircraft to touchdown on the runway when the pilot is no longer able to do so, following the flip of a switch. This breakthrough technology adds a feature to Daher's innovation that specifically addresses safety from the passenger's perspective. It works, as I've already seen in videos. Back to the TBM 900. The most striking feature compared to its predecessor, the TBM 850, are the winglets. They not only increase performance but also generate enough directional stability to allow full power to be set even during takeoff and landing with the flaps extended. The TBM 850 had a limit of 700 horsepower. The mechanical limiter in the cockpit has disappeared. Even better, there is now only one lever instead of three. And instead of the clock store, there was now the Garmin G1000 glass cockpit. Lopos has been reached. Next waypoint is Kogis in about 25 nautical miles. The charts from Thessaloniki are no longer needed. Now the data from Corfu is required. According to the current weather data I have, I prepare for the airnav approach runway 34. This is a straightforward satellite-based approach, and I hope to get an approach approved by Kakira approach directly from Parax to Direx, rather than having to fly over time-consuming star first. Up here in flight level 240, we have a ground speed of over 300 knots with 18 knots of tailwind. It's time to prepare for descent. My flight plan ends at Parax. Here I should have an altitude, according to the chart, of flight level 80, unless otherwise requested by ATC. So I enter this altitude in the flight plan. I set the sink angle to 3 degrees so I can stay a few minutes longer in this altitude, but I have to sink with a higher sink rate. There are still 9 minutes to the top of descent. time I received the info from center, expect runway 34. So I can enter the approach in the flight plan. Open procedure page and select approach. Enter and scroll to AirNav 34 R&P. Enter. I don't want vectors and not to BEDX, but directly to initial approach fix to directs. Enter. Continue to the minimum. Barrow and 770 feet here. Now I produced an error and entered 2900 feet. Sorry for that. We remember 770 feet. Now I have to enter the altitude for directs, 2900 feet. 6 minutes to top of descent. I should not forget to turn in the altitude of 8000 feet, otherwise the autopilot will not initiate the descent. As nav backup, I set the VWAR Garita 108.8, which is directly at the airfield, and the VWAR Kakira 114.7 in the southeast of the island. The 108.6 nav 2 is for the EU1 VWAR DME Yankee November, the waypoint after Picos. Now I activate VNAV. Still 3 minutes to the start of the descent. Quick check again. Altitudes are entered in the flight plan. 8000 feet turned in the altimeter and VNAV activated. We fly over Picos. Next waypoint, Yankee November. 1 minute to go. In the MFD, the TOD is displayed as a point and the glide path pointer moves to the mark where the descent begins. We commence descent. I reduce torque to maintain current speed. We descend with about 1600 feet per minute and reach 8000 feet at Parax in about 9.5 minutes. I'm taking a break now and we report back when we reach about 10,000 feet. Here I am again. 10,000 feet is just about to run through and Corfu is visible ahead of us. Landing light on. It's about 7.5 miles to Parex. I have not been sitting idle for the past few minutes and listened to 80s. Wind 326 knots. Visibility more than 10 kilometers. Temperature 15 degrees. QNH 1020, runway 34 and Foxtrot. And I got the clearance direct from Parex to Direx. I also corrected my error on the minimum input to Lima Golf Kilo Romeo from 2,900 to 770 feet. Before we reach Parex, I activate the waypoint Direx by pressing the Direct button. We will be at the waypoint in about 6 minutes. Another quick look at the map to familiarize myself with the procedure for a possible missed approach. activate Garitza and Kakira VOR in nav 1 and nav 2. QNH from standard to 1020 hectopascal. We are abeam Kakira VOR about 2 miles to our right. In the procedure page, I activate the runway 34 approach via directs. (1,000 feet to descent to altitude 2,900 feet. In a moment we will be over directs, the initial approach fix. 10 seconds to induce right turn to Kilo Romeo 601. (2,900 feet are reached and right turn inbound Kilo Romeo 601. Now reduce speed, because there we may be maximum 185 knots fast. (185 knots). Next waypoint Kilo Romeo 600, the final approach fix. 5 miles to Kilo Romeo 600. Runway in sight. Reduce speed further below 178 knots. Descent is initiated. Gear down and flaps down into takeoff position. Landing check. Landing light on. Gear down, 3 greens, no red. Reduce speed to 122 knots at 1000 feet. Landing clearance from tower. Flaps full down, speed OK. Yaw damper off. Autopilot off, I have the control. In case anyone is thinking that this is a strange approach to the airfield, here's the officially certified explanation for this approach.
Minimum.
Continue. At 500 feet, 95 knots.
500.
At 30 feet, throttle flight idle, touchdown at 75 knots. For me, this was a pleasant flight. The adrenaline kick was missing. I still cannot see that Corfu should be a particularly dangerous airport. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video. What I will produce next, I can't say yet. That also depends on the further development of X-Plane11. There are still some issues, but I am sure that laminar research will fix them in the next updates. So it is possible that a video with the 11 version will be released. Be surprised. Until then, please stay healthy and stay away from all the madness that is currently messing up this world. Bye.